Are you ready to discover the true cost of your daily commute? Brought to you by DebtFreeBible.com. We've convinced ourselves that horrendous commutes to and from our jobs are the inevitable price to pay for success. But how high is that price? Let's take a look at the true cost, both in dollars and in the stress commuting adds to our lives. If you spend more than 90 minutes each way, you're suffering through what the government calls an extreme commute. These commuting nightmares are common for many people working in large cities each day. Well, let's do the math. If you spend an hour and a half going to and from work each day, times about 240 workdays a year, that's a whopping 4.5 months just to get to and from work. Ouch! And the pain isn't just the time spent behind the wheel, but the unpredictability of the commute. A little rain, maybe a car accident, and your 1-hour commute becomes a 2-hour commute. You have to plan for the worst, so you end up leaving for work earlier and earlier each month. The time wasted and the stress endured certainly adds to the cost of your daily commute. Why do we put up with these extreme commutes? One reason we've used to justify the cost and pain is the high price of housing closer to our jobs. We think we're saving a bundle by buying a less expensive home in the burbs an hour or so from work in the city. And even those of us who work in the suburbs have to drive to work. Suburban sprawl and the lack of convenient public transportation make sure of that. A recent report from the Center for Housing Policy, a nonprofit organization in Washington, reveals that moving from the city to the suburbs no longer makes as much sense financially as it used to. Why? Well, because the suburbs are built on a car culture. Quote, transportation means not only going to work, but if you're living in one of the outlying suburbs, it means you need a car to do absolutely everything. So says Barbara Lipman. She's the research director for the report. Sure, some of us are lucky enough to live out near attractions like the beach, the mountains, or lakes. But how much time do we get to enjoy it when we're spending hours every day in a car? Maybe it's time to ask ourselves the question, will we save more money by buying an affordable house in the suburbs and commuting into work, or by buying an expensive apartment in the city closer to our job? The answer may surprise us. As housewife Jackie Brown wrote in her blog recently, quote, we live in a big city and could have had a less expensive home in the suburbs. This would have meant buying a second car as well as making long days for both my husband and myself, resulting in unsatisfying family life for us and the 2 kids. We opted to rent a much more expensive apartment about 100 yards from a subway stop and 2 miles from my husband's office. His commute, about 15 minutes by bike. The children's school is just across the street. We hardly drive the car at all anymore. Yes, we could have had the big house with the yard and garden, but we never would have enjoyed it because we would have been commuting all the time. Let's add 'em up, all the expenses that your daily commute entails. Got your calculator handy? Well, first multiply the number of miles to and from work by the number of days you commute a year times the price of gas. Ka-ching! Now let's add in the cost of maintenance for our cars. One rule of thumb is 6.5 cents per mile driven. Also add on the depreciation and the value of your car for all the miles you put on it. If you drive a lot, at least drive an older car. They don't appreciate nearly as much. Do you drive on toll roads? Well, be sure to include that cost. How about paying for parking at work? In major cities, that can be a huge cost, but not as high as the cost of your time. Multiply all the hours you end up sitting in your car by what you get paid per hour. That's time you could have been spending with your family instead of with your car. Here are the true costs for those of you stuck with an extreme commute. You drive 100 miles a day to and from work on 250 days a year, and that takes you 2 hours on a good day. Now, let's plug that into our calculator. Gas 100 miles per day with a car getting 25 miles per gallon. Buying gas at $3 a gallon, that comes to $3,000 a year. Maintenance 100 miles per day at 6.5 cents per mile. Well, that comes to $1,625 a year. Vehicle depreciation? Well, on a new car costing $25,000, the depreciation the first year would be $5,000. Your time, 2 hours a day times a labor rate of $10 per hour, well, you've wasted $5,000 of your time commuting. The grand total, you paid $14,625 to do something you hate, commuting to work. And that doesn't even include tolls, parking, and other commuter-related expenses. Let's look at some simple ways we can reduce the cost of our daily commutes, like, well, carpooling. Think about it. Commuting with just one more person cuts your costs in half. Or you could try taking mass transit. Might take a little longer to get to work, but, well, you've deleted the most expensive cost, your car, and taking a train or bus gives you some time to catch up on your reading. Another solution to the commute problem is talking your boss into letting you work flex time hours. For example, if you work 4 10-hour days, you commute one less day per week. An instant 20% reduction in your commute time. And some studies have shown that people who work 4 10-hour days are actually more productive than your typical 9-to-5 worker. Telecommuting is another alternative to the daily slog to work. The number of Americans who work at home at least one day a week is almost 50 million. That number's rising due to the lower cost of computers and increased high-speed internet access at home. A good example is Sherry. She works for an aerospace company outside Los Angeles. She used to get up every workday at 4 a.m. and drive more than 100 miles round trip to her job. Now she works about half-time from home. She says, quote, "For me, the real benefit was time savings, and I'm actually a lot more productive because I don't get interrupted as much and I can really focus." On the days she does go into the office, she takes a commuter van. Way to go, Sherry. A more drastic measure for reducing your costs would be moving to a less congested part of the country. You'll probably find more affordable housing closer to the jobs and hit less traffic on the way. The U.S. Census Bureau reports that the cities with the lowest average commute time are Corpus Christi, Texas, Wichita, Kansas, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Omaha, Nebraska. If you move close enough to your job, you could even sell the car and, well, ride a bike. Here's an approach that more people are seriously considering: becoming a stay-at-home parent. Do we really need 2 incomes to make ends meet, or are we just spending more because, well, we're making more? If you're paying for daycare because both of you are working, it might be time to get out the calculator. Let's say mom makes $10 an hour at her job. She's only taking home about $13,000 a year. Of course, daycare costs vary greatly from one part of the country to another, but $600 per month is typical. That comes to $7,200 per year. So mom is really only making about $5,000 a year. Less than that when we deduct the cost of commuting. But wait, she has 2 kids in daycare for a total of $14,400 per year. Now, she's losing money by going to work. And worse yet, we're not even calculating in the long-term social cost of these children being raised by somebody else. Now that one of you is at home every day, maybe it's time to consider a work-at-home job. It's your chance to do what you've always wanted to do. Enjoy life, spend quality time with your kids, and, well, also make some money. Let's break the chain of addiction to our daily commutes. It might be as simple as carpooling or riding mass transit, or as life-changing as moving to a less congested area, or quitting our job and working from home. You may never have to listen to another radio traffic report again. Fender bender on the outer expressway has it all fouled up today. It'll be a slow slog to work. Good luck. This video has been brought to you by thedebtfreebible.com, the fastest way to learn the strategies to get out of debt and stay out of debt forever, guaranteed. Please visit debtfreebible.com.